It was the kind of night when July's ghost breathes on the rice fields. The river wind tasted of iron and old prayers. Temple bells argued with funeral horns across the water. Frogs stitched the darkness with wet, nervous notes. On the farthest, driest plot of the sunken paddies, a single figure stooped and moved, thin as a famine, palms raw, a basket of woven cane at his waist. He hunted frogs to turn dawn into porridge. People in the village called him the Frog, as if poverty were a surname. No land, no ox, no schooling, just mud, cold, and the endless hiss of ridicule. Every frog he snatched was a single coin. A night's haul, if luck didn't laugh, might buy one more morning of rice mixed with cassava. Tonight, luck laughed loudly. The moon slid behind bruised clouds, the mud sucked at his legs, and the frogs learned new tricks. Hunger pulled one way, shame pulled the other. Somewhere far off, a funeral drum thudded, slow as a closing door. By dawn, his basket held a handful of shivering coins. At market, laughter cut deeper than prices. The frog, they sang, weighing his night's labor like scraps for a cat. He swallowed it all and carried the cheapness home. There, another hunger waited with a voice. His wife, edging, eyes sharp from too many thin soups, pressed him. The in-laws' memorial feast demanded 3 silver coins by tomorrow. 3, 4 others, a shrug. 4, a mountain with slick sides. He tried dignity. It broke in his mouth. He tried silence. It screamed inside his chest. At last he bent his shame like a knee and went to the old scholar, Gina, whose white hair had seen many poor men come to borrow their future. Gina sighed and lent him the money, then added a chance. Earn the same again by carrying 2 earthen jars of fine rice wine across the forest to a house blessing before dusk. Go early, the old man warned. Return before night finds you. The forest path was a throat of shadows. His shoulders burned under the swaying wine jars. Sweat streaked the dust on his chest. Every gust from the trees smelled like graves. Then a stumble. A body lay across the trail. Tripped. 1 jar smashed. Wine bled into the earth like a crimson river. The forest drinking greedily. He fell to his knees, clutching shards, despair howling inside his ribs. The body sat up. A beggar, wild hair, eyes glowing like coals in a hearth gone mad. He laughed until crows shrieked from their branches. Spilled wine, spilled fate. Drink with me, the beggar said, dipping his filthy hands in the leaking jar. His lips shone with stolen drink, but his voice thickened into ritual. He whispered of NGCIV and 5 ghosts of fortune, spirits of drowned children bound to fetch gold, if fed. But every bargain, he warned, was written in blood. 10 years of riches, then repayment. Hunger for dignity trembled against his terror. He listened, and the night listened to the beggar's eyes glittered like wet stones. Catch them, bind them, he rasped. You'll need the fat of a drowned child. Drip it from a candle into a bamboo tube. Smear it on 5 paper effigies. Burn them with a strand of kin's hair and a drop of your own blood. Then the 5 will obey. They'll bring you rice, silver, houses, until 10 years pass. Then they'll collect their debt. Skin crawled. His heart said run. His hunger said listen. Poverty had carved him hollow. The promise of gold filled that hollow with fever. The beggar pressed a tattered charm into his hand. Yellow paper, edges burned, ink squirming like worms. Guard it as your soul, but speak of this to no one, not even your wife. If the ghosts feel betrayed, they will not serve, they will feast. Bowed, trembling, the parchment searing cold against his palm. Behind him, the forest seemed to sigh, as though hundreds of unseen mouths were breathing on his neck. He staggered home with the weight of 2 jars reduced to one end, a curse heavier than both. Weeks passed. Hunger lingered like mold. The talisman slept under below, whispering without words. His wife's scolding grew sharper, his shame heavier. Then came the storm. Rain clawed at the village. On his way back from the fields, saw 6-year-old to his neighbor's boy playing near the flooded pond by the ruined shrine. Thin limbs, ribs like a xylophone. The child's laugh was a fragile candle against the storm. Then a slip, a splash. The pond swallowed him whole. His small hands clawed at the air, eyes wide with terror, eyes that found stepped forward, then froze. In his skull, the beggar's rasp returned, the fat of a drowned child. Only within 7 days, his muscles shook. 1 step could save the boy. 1 pause could feed his hunger for 10 years. Taya's cry became a gurgle. The water closed. Silence. Only rain, drumming like a funeral procession. Pressed his back against a tree, nails biting into bark, whispering, "Forgive me, forgive me." But inside, the whisper twisted into a seed of triumph. The village wept for two. Women tore their hair. Men shook their heads. Incense smeared the air with sorrow. Stood among them, face carved in false grief, though inside him a clock ticked. 7 days. 7 days, he counted them like coins. On the seventh night, clouds smothered the moon. He slipped from his bed, shovel hidden beneath his ragged coat. The path to the graveyard twisted like a question he already knew the answer to. The boy's grave was fresh, soil soft and damp. With each thrust of the spade, his pulse hammered. Each clod of earth released the stink of rain and death. Then wood dull and hollow. He pried it open. Gas hissed from the coffin like the sigh of the damned. The boy's body lay stiff, lips blue, arms outstretched, as if still begging for rescue. Gagged, but forced the candle flame beneath the child's chin. Wax melted, flesh blistered. Drops of pale fat fell into the bamboo tube, thick and greasy, with a smell that clung like sign. Each drop hissed as though the earth itself protested. When enough had pooled, he sealed it, shoved the lid back, and buried guilt beneath the mud. Behind him, the night was no longer silent, it was listening. Back home, the storm's echoes still rattled the roof. Set his tools on the dirt floor, hands shaking like dry leaves. He laid out 5 paper effigismal, fragile bodies cut from yellowed sheets. In the center, a chipped porcelain bowl. He cut a lock of hair from his sleeping wife, aging her breath steady, unaware. Then he slit his own finger, letting a drop fall into the bowl. The stolen hair curled in the flame, releasing the smell of burnt marrow. Next, he opened the bamboo tube. The fat of the drowned child slid out in globs, coating the paper figures. They seemed to darken, drink, almost twitch. Whispering the beggar's incantation, he pressed his forehead to the floor 3 times. When he lifted it, smoke was no longer rising, it was shaping. 5 tiny faces glimmered in the haze. Children's faces, pale and waxy, eyes hollow as pits. They smiled, not with innocence, but with hunger. The fire guttered. The room chilled, chest hammered with terror and exultation. He had called, and they had answered. That night he slept with the charm clutched to his breast, ears full of phantom giggles drifting from the corners of the house. 3 days later, fate arrived on hooves. His wife, Jing, walking back from the market, was struck by the runaway cart of a magistrate's son. Her body crumpled, her eyes still open, questioning. The village gasped in grief, but grief twisted into something colder when the magistrate's servants came bearing a heavy chest of silver as compensation. They begged his silence, and he, howling like a widower, hid the smile inside his ribs. The 5 had kept their promise. 1 life for wealth. Soon, he no longer crouched in the mud for frogs. He bought goods, sold them across villages, hired laborers. Coin begat coin. People who once spat at him now bowed. Within a year, he was landlord. His courtyard paved with red brick. His storehouses swollen with rice. His fingers heavy with rings. But wealth fermented cruelty. Servants who faltered tasted his whip. Farmers bled under his taxes. 2. Their pain was background music, like frogs in the paddies. And at night, he still crept to the hidden cellar, feeding the 5 with offerings of blood and whispers. He believed himself master. In truth, he was the servant. Years passed. Remarried a young beauty, veiled in silk and gold. She bore him a son, round-faced, bright-eyed. The air he dreamed would carry his name above the clouds of shame. Feasts roared, drums shook the air, and the village whispered envy. But nights belonged to the cellar. Beneath his mansion lay a hidden chamber, air rank with blood and incense. There, 5 bowls smoldered, shadows clung to the corners, and whispers crawled like centipedes. Knelt, offering chicken blood, chanting as if to gods. Then the strange began. His son laughed in his sleep, a high, joyous sound. Sometimes, he babbled 2 empty corners. Don't pull my sleeve, I'll share my toys with you. Servants whispered of small handprints in ashes, of toys rolling by themselves. One night, heard it himself, the patter of bare feet in the cellar, followed by the shrill giggle of unseen children. When he lifted the lamp, 5 tiny handprints glistened on the altar table, wet as though pressed a moment before. His heart clenched. He remembered the beggar's words, 10 years of wealth. Then, the debt, and already, The collectors were laughing, sleep deserted. Every whisper, every creak in the rafters felt like a summons. One night, his son shuffled into the hall, pale as wax, eyes blank as moonstone. In his small hand, he held a slip of paper scrawled in crooked ink. 23rd day of the month. His breath froze. 10 years earlier, to the night, he had spilled the fat, burned the hair, sealed the pact. His son lifted his face, soft features, suddenly hardened by a voice not his own. "Master, it has been 10 years. The lamp sputtered. Darkness swallowed the room. When light returned, the paper smoldered, in S-grip, glowing like a coal before vanishing into nothing. From that night, he heard the giggles, not only in the cellar, but in the halls, under his bed, in his dreams. Servants crossed themselves at the sounds of children playing where no children were. His young wife wept, certain their son was haunted, clutched his wealth tighter, as though silver could bribe shadows. But the date approached, and the 5 whispered louder, eager as wolves scenting blood. The morning of the 23rd arrived with a sky bruised purple. Wife and child went to the temple. The servants scattered to the fields. He was left alone in the grand house he had built on bones. From below came the sound, tiny feet, laughter like glass breaking, rage and terror twisted inside him. He staggered to the cellar with a torch and a jug of oil. The door creaked open to darkness breathing. He splashed oil across the altar, onto the paper-stained walls. The torch hissed, then roared. Flames devoured shadows. Smoke rolled like a beast. For a heartbeat he felt triumphant, till the fire revealed them. 5 small figures, skin charred, eyes pits of coal, mouths wide with joyless grins. They danced in the inferno, sang in voices that bent the air. 10 years of silver, 10 years of gold. Now blood, the debt must be told. Screamed, stumbling back as the house shook with their chant. The fire rose like judgment, but it did not consume them. It only made their grins sharper, their voices louder. And outside, a servant's voice broke the madness. "Master, mistress," and the boy, struck down by a runaway carriage, burst into the street, lungs aflame, legs like rotten wood. Villagers crowded at the crossroads, their faces masks of pity and fear. He shoved through on, fell to his knees. His wife's body lay twisted, her silk-soaked red. Beside her, his little boy, his heir, his pride small chest crushed, eyes wide, fixed on nothing. Their hands, limp, stretched outward, as if still reaching for him. The world spun. He remembered the beggar's warning, the smile that had dripped venom. 10 years of fortune. Then all you love will be taken. That night, the house of Baich was wrapped in mourning cloth. Alone in the great hall, he sat between 2 coffins, silver stacked uselessly around him. From the shadows, laughter rose high, cruel, childlike. 5 pale figures emerged, eyes black, mouths split to the ears. They circled him, whispering, digging graves, stealing fat, burning blood. 10 years you fed us. 10 years we fed you. Now, we feast. Claws like needles clutched his limbs. His scream split the rafters, then vanished into silence. When dawn came, the mansion stood empty, doors ajar, wealth scattered, its master gone as if swallowed whole. And deep in the forest, a beggar waited, eyes gleaming, for the next desperate soul who would dare to bargain with the 5.